Early morning, a forest in southern India. This film, the first of its kind, examines the behavior and follows intimately the lifestyle of the Asian elephant. The majestic bull roams his domain, the lord of the jungle. India is one of the homes of the Asian elephant, where the largest population in the world is to be found. From the estimated numbers of over 20,000, mainly 6,000 live in this last stronghold in the south. This is one of the most suitable habitats, ranging through from dry to moist deciduous forests with vegetation comprising of grasses, evergreens and thorn scrub. Elephants are comparatively safe here and have the best chance for long-term survival. They have been seldom filmed in the wild. Indian elephants occur widely in Southeast Asia through Burma, Thailand, Malaysia and Sri Lanka, and for this reason they are more commonly known as Asian elephants. African and Asian elephants differ considerably. The African is the larger and has bigger ears. The Asian has a more domed forehead, and only the male carries tusks, while with the African, both have tusks. They are the largest land mammal, having an enormous appetite, needing about 150 kilograms of green fodder every day. In fact, even during the night, feeding doesn't stop. The trunk is a multi-purpose, highly sensitive organ, a nose on the end of a pole. It is used in all aspects of elephant life, smelling, touching, drinking and feeding. Elephants are highly social, living in small family groups where the oldest cow is the leader. In this group there are 4 young males. Their tusks begin to grow when they are about 2 years old and grow throughout their life. They reach maturity at the age of 14 to 15. Mature tuskers are predominantly loners, but join the female herds for breeding. Some bulls don't have tusks, but compensate by having a thicker trunk and tending to be more muscular and more aggressive, known as makhna. Status in the male population is maintained by mock fights, testing each other's strength. It is very hard to find a big tusker because many have been killed for the valuable ivory. This bull is about 35 years old and may live to be 120. It may weigh about 5,500 kilograms and is over 3 meters tall. Bulls go through periodic character changes when a discharge exudes from temporal or musth glands between the eyes and the ear on each side of the head. It happens usually once a year, often in the rainy season. This bull forces the musth to flow by exerting pressure on the tusks. Mystery still surrounds this phenomenon, which can last anything from a few weeks to several months. Musth has never been recorded for males under 10 years of age. This male is beginning to go into musth. During musth, there is a swelling of the temporal glands. On locating the soft soil near a waterhole, he drives his tusks into it. It is believed to help in jarring the temporal glands to smooth the flow. A sandpiper feeding on the shore of a waterhole. A wagtail is attracted to the waters. There are plenty of flies around elephant dung. It is touching the temporal glands to smell and feel if the flow has started. In the Corbett National Park, the elephant which became known as Red Ear is in full musth. Its left cheek is stained with blackish thick fluid which has strong odor, even sensed by man. To other males, it signals aggression. To females, it indicates that the male is actively seeking a mate. The red ear wanders from group to group, trying to locate a female in estrus. Musth gives added dominance to the bull. Bulls in musth will not tolerate another adult male in the herd. Seeing a younger bull, Red Ear moves briskly towards him. Confrontation is avoided. The Red Ear knows the strength of other bulls around the herd from former encounters. The herd closes ranks, for there's another bull seeking out a female. The Red Ear is challenged by a single tusked bull. Tusks are mainly used as weapons for fighting, and also as a display to secure dominance. The jousting excites the herd, and they move towards the contestants. Serious injury could result if the two males were evenly matched, but one tusk is no match for the Red Ear. It probably lost one of its tusks in just such a fight. Submission, defeat becomes obvious. With a long last look at what might have been, one tusk departs without much dignity. On being approached by Red Ear, the winner, the females turn and spread their hind legs and urinate, permitting the male to test the reproductive status. the herd moves inside the forest. The red deer follows two males in estrus. The younger bull joins the herd in shade. While one of them is mounted, the other stands quietly by, dusting. Bull elephants can reproduce at any time, not necessarily when they are in musth. It is generally the dominant bull who will mate with the cows. There is a myth that elephants only mate almost submerged in water to ease the problems of their enormous weight. For such huge animals, it is all very gentle. The trunk comes into play. The bull slides it along the back of the prospective mate. This restrains her and prevents her moving to one side to avoid courting. For successful copulation, there must be full cooperation from the female. Gentle nudging persuades her. As with all herbivores, mating is accomplished quickly, but will continue for 3 to 4 days while the cow remains in estrus. As the male calves begin to reach sexual maturity, they indulge in a lot of play, mounting the subadult females. The young female protests by squealing loudly. This alerts the older cows, who rush in to intervene. In the Shivalik foothills, there are about 500 wild elephants. They are encircled as their traditional migration routes between feeding grounds have become bisected by modern developments. This great waterway feeds the Chilla hydroelectric power station near the holy city of Haridwar. The canal was constructed without considering the needs of wildlife. For centuries, elephants have moved through here on their migrations. Today, they cannot even drink water from the river. The banks are so steep that no animal can descend to drink. A few years ago, an elephant tried to drink here. He slipped and died. In southern India, there are problems of a different nature. Traditional elephant grounds have been encroached by the needs for housing and agriculture. In the past 50 years, agricultural development has increased by an estimated 30%. What was once elephant country is now covered by tea plantations. The famous Nilgiri tea is gathered here. The climate is ideal for growing spices like black pepper and even coffee. Cattle are a problem too.
Now the villages around the forest tend to keep a large number of cattle simply as dung producing machines. These are used neither for draft nor for milk production, but simply they convert the forest biomass into cow dung, which is sold for a cash income. Now this is the reason why there are a lot more cattle around the forest reserves than there are in a similar sized village situated away from the forest. But in the whole process, the forest habitat gets severely damaged, the regeneration is suppressed, the wild herbivores have competition for food, and the habitat degrades.
Even in designated areas, such as Mudumalai, it is impossible to prevent grazing by domestic cattle. About 10,000 cattle enter daily for grazing within the forest, as there's no charge. They are nothing more than mobile dung factories. Local people keep them for that purpose alone, following them and picking up their dung. After drying, it is sold as manure. In the hot season, elephants gather in swampy areas for better grazing. The local villagers have also driven their buffaloes and cattle to this swamp. Cattle directly compete for feeding with wild herbivores. They also increase the risks of spreading diseases like anthrax and foot and mouth disease. The presence of cattle causes a lot of disturbance to the elephants, and frequently they will chase them away. The raised tail and kicking the ground with its foreleg are sure signs of elephant anger. So the elephants are forced to move away in search of less disturbed grazing areas. A ban should be imposed on cattle grazing in this forest. Dusting is one protection against the intense rays of the sun. The dust lays on the back and acts as a shield. As the sun heightens in a summer sky, a herd moves on to seek out shade to protect them from the heat. In the melee produced by the elephants seeing off the cattle, the Samba deer have become surrounded and they show some anxiety. The raised tail is a signal of danger, but deer have speed on their side. The elephants are finding the heat of the day too much for them. The need for shade is paramount. Here's an example of an elephant using a tool, swishing a leafy branch as a fly swat. Despite having a rough, thick skin, there are chinks in the armor, gaps between the wrinkles where blood-sucking flies alight and take a feed. Around the eyes are other target areas. Flapping ears keep the flies on the move. But their presence isn't felt until they've penetrated the host's skin. It's only then that they are swatted away. Many flies are killed and some seriously hurt. Dusting, though, in the areas which cannot be reached by ears, trunk or tail is the surest defense against the small predators. The first to settle down for a snooze are the calves. They can sleep for hours, provided they are not disturbed. While resting in the hot hours of the day, elephants sleep. Some lie down. Some sit and rest while others sleep standing like horses. Surprisingly, this activity has largely gone unnoticed by observers. An elephant, when feeling hot, will often put the tip of its trunk into its mouth and bring out saliva and spray it over its body. Elephants do not have sweat glands. To keep their body heat down, they constantly fan their ears, which act as heat exchangers. Siesta is over. Most of the waking hours, though, are spent in foraging and feeding, in sustaining their enormous bulk. They move from one grazing area to another. The herd, followed by an elderly bull, move away to find water. Elephants must visit water once a day. They can emit low-frequency or infrasounds, traveling long distances to keep contact among members of the herd. Elephants have poor eyesight. Hearing is acute. They raise their trunks to scent the air to detect their own families or possible dangers. This is where the trunk becomes a hose pipe, sucking up the water and squirting it in huge volumes directly into the mouth. They need as much as 140 liters of water each day. This female is confounding all elephant stories. She's not using her trunk, but drinking water directly through her mouth, a most unusual sight. Calves don't need much persuading to take a bath. They become excited and noisy. Here's one young male so anxious to take the water that he pushes the young female towards the edge. A wide expanse of water is necessary for bathing. Elephants love water and wallow and roll once the water takes the weight off their feet. They are also expert swimmers. As with all youngsters, some rebel. There's always a way around that. Shove them in at the deep end. The water becomes their playground. It seems a contradiction to take a bath and then immediately roll in sticky mud. But in elephant life, both are a vital part of skin hygiene. Elephants scrape the soil with the forefeet, collect it with their trunks, and toss it onto their backs. Dust baths are usually taken soon after climbing ashore from water. As the herd moves away through the forest to find the next grazing area, one female stays behind. She is heavily pregnant and appears in some distress. Her time is near, after a long gestation period of 18 to 22 months. The labor pains have started. Normally, they give birth in the standing position. It's possible that this animal is having her first calf. The rocking motion on the ground could put pressure on her stomach and ease the birth. Another young female is close by for company. She takes periodic rests between the moments of pushing and straining. 5 hours have passed in painful labor. The unborn calf has been moved into position for its entry into the world. Another addition to the family herd is about to be born. The contractions become more intense, more tiring. She kicks out a back leg to remove any obstructions. She bends her rear legs to make the gap between them wider to ease the birth. And by adopting this position, the fetus doesn't have so far to fall. This has been a difficult birth. At last, covered in the fetal membrane, the calf enters the world. After all that effort, she moves closer. There is no reassuring movement from the small body. The calf is stillborn. The cow, still not convinced of the inevitable, kicks dust over the calf's body to dry it, because she can't lick it clean as most animals do. This is all in vain. As the light begins to fail and the flying squirrels leave their tree holes to take their nocturnal feed, night draws a veil over a life that wasn't to be. Next morning, the mother and her attendant abandon the dead calf and move on to join the herd. There are signs of another birth. The calf must have been born during the early hours of the morning. The newly born calf is unsteady. Legs hardly seem able to support it. The cow and her attendant aunt carefully encourage the wobbly calf to stand on his own feet. What is astonishing for such huge and heavy creatures is their tenderness. They truly are gentle giants, never putting a foot wrong in maneuvering the tiny offspring. They are concerned because it is close to the waterhole and could fall in. The herd moves on, but the calf appears unsteady. He follows his mother. At birth, they stand between 75 to 90 centimeters and weigh about 100 kilograms. With the help of her trunk, the mother persuades the calf to keep moving. Soon after birth, they can walk quite a distance. The mother's milk will be the sole nourishment for the first 6 months of his life. Elephants have just 2 mammary glands to provide milk, but they are between the front legs. Calves are extremely hairy compared to adults. Eyes are quite red when born, almost bloodshot. He manages to find the nipple and suckles with the mouth, keeping the trunk out of the way. He may consume about 10 liters of milk a day. The mother is proud and possessive, but needs the help of another cow, an auntie, to assist in the protection and upbringing of the calf. The prospective auntie touches the mother's temporal region, which it is thought produces low-frequency sounds or tremors too low to be heard by human ears. Permission appears to have been given, and now the calf has double protection. Young calves are sleepy creatures. The calf is kept between the mother and aunt so that it is not open to danger. Tigers are known to predate on such young calves. They even clean the vegetation around where it rests. Perhaps this could prevent a poisonous snake creeping through the grass and biting the calf unawares, a not unknown event. They keep smelling the calf regularly with their trunks to make sure he's all right. The mother and aunt are forced to stand idle while the calf sleeps. A tiring business, bringing up youngsters. When it is time to move, mother wakes the calf gently by touching it. Tender, loving care is constantly seen between the mother and calf. The touch of the trunk keeps reassuring the youngster, helping to guide him in the right direction. Elephants normally give birth to a single calf, but occasionally twins are born. These are identical twins. One is a male, the other female. Now 6 months old, they are certainly in the nursery school stage of their lives. The calves learn about the environment around them by constantly exploring it. But with two very playful youngsters to protect, the cow and aunt have a full-time job. Each calf knows exactly which is its feeding station, making for its particular side of the calf. The tussle of play is just another form of learning. Their trunks at this stage flap about without much muscle. Many migrations are made by elephants, sparked off by the rains. They tread the same tracks used for centuries by their ancestors. Some agricultural enterprises are within the designated reserves, and sadly, elephants often come into conflict with their human neighbors. Each settlement is inhabited by a few families who cultivate the land. The principal crops are ginger and paddy. Their crops are damaged every year. There are obvious signs of a jumbo invasion.
Cultivation has occupied some of the best habitats, such as river valleys, which contain fertile soil, good plant growth, and a perennial supply of water. It is therefore natural that elephants, in the course of their seasonal movement, when they come to occupy such habitats, encounter cultivation and therefore enter the fields for raiding crops. But I feel that ultimately crop raiding occurs because the cultivated plants are far more palatable and nutritious compared to the wild food plants of the elephants.
A bird may be scared away by a wind-blown white flag, but not a tusker. He goes where he wants. More damage is done by trampling the fields rather than by feeding. Many farmers lose 20% of their crops. In some areas, no compensation is given for crop damage.
The adult male elephants raid crops much more frequently than the female herds. And even among the adult males, there are certain very notorious bulls which are very bold and enter the fields without bothering about all the noise and the bursting of crackers by the farmers.
The villagers are trying to scare the invaders. They are not permitted by the park rules to use firearms. Every year, about 150 people are killed by elephants, many protecting their crops. Given adequate compensation, the people here would be willing to move. It's a plan on the grand scale. The government is considering relocating these villages and returning these areas to the wild animals. In some areas, state governments are digging elephant-proof trenches to protect against the raiding of crops. The trench is usually 2 meters deep and 3 meters wide with tapering sides. They are not proving very useful as they easily silt up and elephants walk across. Elephants also eat a lot of bark from their favorite trees such as grevia. The tusks are used to lift the bark. They destroy much more than they eat. Many trees die because their barks have been stripped. Females too are capable of debarking. In southern India, another major threat to the elephant population is poaching. On average, over 100 tuskers are killed each year. This young tusker, no more than 10 years old, escaped from poachers with a massive wound on his forehead. A bullet has entered one side of the temple and emerged the other side. Its days are numbered. Poaching is done by organized gangs using any weapons available. They live in the forest and, having wounded their quarry, simply wait for it to die before collecting their ill-gotten gains. Elephants move to water to pass their final hours and eventually die. The tusks of this casualty have been chopped away. It's seldom one can see these elderly bulls with tusks nearly reaching the ground. Most of them have fallen to poachers. The days of this one too are numbered. It has been shot by a rifle bullet just above the eye.
The government machinery to protect the elephants is very weak. There are not enough men, and those men who are out there are very poorly equipped. They don't have enough wireless facilities, enough vehicles, enough good ammunition or arms. So unless more funds are sunk into this, it's a losing battle.
Poachers move fast, hacking out the tusks. They have no interest in any other part of the carcass. Tusks are larger than they appear. A third of the total length is embedded in the skull. The external section is solid ivory, the part in the head hollow. Poachers manage to sell the tusks illegally to ivory traders.
The problem is that the elephant poaching cases are detected by the Forest Department, which does not have a separate legal cell or the manpower to prosecute them in the court. So these cases are handed over to the police. Now the police have a different set of priorities. Elephant poaching comes way down their list. As a result, the prosecution is not very vigorously carried on.
Poachers are rarely caught by the foresters. A culprit has been apprehended in possession of a muzzle-loading gun nearly 6 feet long. He is being questioned.
Several poachers who are caught are immediately released on some kind of a bail or the other, and they continue their activities. So, creation of a separate legal cell within the forest department for prosecuting these cases, as well as tightening up of the judicial system to make it more effective, are both needed.
India is the second largest exporter of ivory products in the world. There are about 7,000 traditional carvers. Until recently, there was no control of the ivory trade. Works of art are in demand all over the world. In 1986, the government introduced new laws banning the trade in Indian ivory. The traders may do business in African ivory, but they have to register and declare their stocks periodically. The government hopes that this will discourage the poachers and that they will find it difficult to do business. Implementing the new law has many problems. Once it has been carved, there is no obvious difference between African and Indian ivory. Ironically, Ganesh, the elephant god, made from ivory, is on display. Devout Hindus seek its blessings. The real lord of the jungle is by now in serious trouble. The symbols of his male dominance have become his death warrant. The bullet wound is above the eye. He blows water on the wound and seals it with his trunk. He seems in great agony, and the wound has become infected. Unfortunately, he is carrying a large price on his head. The tusks are about 1.8 meters long, nearly 6 feet on the outside, worth over $8,500. He lies down in the water, as if he knows the end is near. Poachers were following the animal. After a further 4 months, he finally fell to a poacher. All that remained of this magnificent animal was this dried-up skeleton. Poachers have taken such a toll of large tuskers that to continue their illegal trade, young bulls only 5 years old are now being killed, with tusks just a few inches long. This is leading to an imbalance in the sexes. This could have catastrophic results on the fertility of the elephant population. Their whole existence is threatened. To survive, they must have total protection in large protected areas. The elephant is part of India's heritage. It is unthinkable that this heritage could be lost forever.